My name is Jay Lyman. I'm a librarian here at the Seattle Public Library. I want to welcome you to this event and to our library. How many of you are here in this building for the first time today? Anybody? A couple of you. Okay, here's a trivia question. Who knows why the floor is red? Oh. Any guesses? So what I heard was kind of like color therapy, where you walk through the red floor, you get excited, and then you walk into the room and the room is blue, and you calm down. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I'm going with. So I'm just going to say welcome. I also want to make sure that you all know, like, navigation-wise, you need to leave. Please, anytime, walk around. The restrooms are around the corner. You have to push on the door to open them instead of pulling out. Sometimes that's a confusion, but they're both around this direction, even though the sign says that direction. I'm going to turn it over and just thank you all for coming. Appreciate you being here.
Great. Thank you, Jay, and I really appreciate the Seattle Public Library for hosting us. I'm James Lenahan. I work at Tableau Software and volunteering my time tonight to help teach you a little bit about data interpretation. With me today, we have folks from the census. We have Noel and CU. We also have some folks in the back that are helping, Shay from the Department of State, and Julie and Callie from the WTIA. So you've got a handful of folks. If you have any issues or things, questions about throughout the night, feel free to grab one of us. So let's dive into the agenda. As you saw when you signed up, we'll do a little bit of introductions, love to know who's in the room tonight. We'll go over interpreting data visualizations, and then really the focus of this is partnering with the Census 2020 and illustrating to you and exposing you to different types of census data and how you can use that in your own life. And we'll actually go hands-on with that later in the workshop tonight to go through how to use some of the census tools available. So just maybe by a show of hands, if you can, I'd love to hear, does anyone here own their own business or work at a business and that's what they're primarily here for? Okay, great, a few folks. Anyone that works in a nonprofit, interested in that realm? Great, a few over here. Awesome. And then I guess everyone else just here for general learning, or love to hear anyone in particular have something in particular you'd love to hear or learn about tonight? Anything of interest? Awesome. Yeah. So the comment in the back was how to visualize data, which is great because that's exactly what we're going to show tonight. And some of the tools we'll be showing is mapping some of this information. So, and this is a part of a series of workshops where we'll go even deeper into some of those topics in a second and third workshop. Well, awesome. Great to have all of you. I hope each of you can get different things out of this evening. Let's just jump right away in defining data. Right, so this is one definition of data, facts and statistics collected together for reference or analysis. And I think this is from the Oxford Dictionary, but what I liked about this definition is it actually has an action at the end, right? There's sort of a call to action, if you will, that data doesn't just exist to exist. There's something you do with it. You reference it for something, you analyze it. And that's exactly what I think about why I use data for at Tableau and in my own personal life. When I was growing up, I often thought data was maybe for scientists or statisticians, and so it was like, oh, this is for actuaries and insurance companies, and it's sort of a scary concept, right? But honestly, I really feel like I've come to learn, especially visualizing data, that data is for everyone, And looking at this, I thought about what was the thing about the first set of data you had, and maybe for me it was as a kid tallying my allowance or something, and how I was going to do that. I work in finance, so that's probably that's my memory, But yeah, data is really about telling a story and doing something with it. And we'll jump right into just showing some examples of how we can tell a story with data. So here we have a few visuals that are using census data that we can depict a story with. This first one is a line graph, which is great for showing sort of a continuous total over time, right? So this is a population, immigration into the United States over a 10-year period, the year 2000 to 2010. And a line graph is great because population is sort of a constant number that carries forward in time. So you see the number of people immigrating from different areas on the y-axis, that left-hand side vertically. And you see over the 10 years on the x-axis on the bottom. And this specific visual is chosen to show 4 different areas, 3 of which are regions. We have Asia, other Latin American nations, Mexico, and Europe. And so you can sort of see them and compare them side by side. I'd love to get just some engagement here. Is there anything anyone kind of notices right away with this, or what draws your eye or makes you think about? Sure.
Well, looks like there's everyone did starting in 2001, and then maybe 2003 sort of began to bounce back with Mexico having a large jump in 2004, sort of almost back to standards prior to 2001.
Yeah, absolutely. And I myself was looking, I think if you look at 2004, as you pointed out rightfully, I believe if you look at that closely, Mexico is actually larger than Europe and other Latin American nations combined. So yeah, it's interesting, and you've kind of called out specific years where you see those inflection points, and that drew your eye. Any other observations?
9/11 impacts, maybe? Everything dipped after 2001.
Sure, yeah.
This would be a hard graph for somebody who's colorblind.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and absolutely, you know, I think that's one always interesting thing. Other than color blindness, the purple of the axes is a little difficult to see as well. So different authors of visuals can make their own personal choices around how they want to present those, but absolutely I'm colorblind. Okay, anything that you don't see, or like, actually a lot of people have kind of raised additional questions through looking at this, but anything else that this makes you wonder, like, what's not here? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so that's something I saw as well, is there's not every continent is represented here. You can also ask questions as well that would be like, why is Mexico pulled out, right? Maybe the author of this visual wants to draw attention to Mexico, of course, as we saw with one of the first observations, that it's a large inflection in 2004. So everything you do, whether you're thinking about your audience for a visual, as the author of a data visualization, you really need to think about, do you have audience members who might be colorblind? Do you need to have all things represented, or why are you trying to include or exclude certain things to tell your story? And I actually find, while we may have some questions here that sort of have us puzzled about why it's been done a certain way, I do think good data visualizations often lead you to asking more questions. And so it really kind of starts the beginning of a journey on a story, and it doesn't quite end only in just one graph to rule them all and define everything. Let's jump to some other examples of data visualizations. So again, using some census data, this is the percent of voters who have registered and voted by race and Hispanic or Latino origin during presidential elections in the United States back to 1980. And this is a stacked bar chart. So what you can see here is there's percentages of folks that have registered to vote and those that voted on the y-axis, that vertical one. So 100% of people at the top and 0 at the bottom. And you have the years and categorized down there by race and origin as well. And so the colors on the bars, the light and dark purple, sum together to sort of show you the total number of folks that are registered. But then it gets segmented down to show you the ratio of those who did vote and those who did not vote of that category. So what are some observations folks see with this one? Sure.
I think this is hard to interpret just as a layperson. I don't think this is for a general audience because it's percent. You're looking at the y-axis, it's representing percent, and it's hard for me to really get what the data is telling.
Yes, that's fair. I'll say myself, I find stacked bar charts personally, they're useful for showing you the total of something, but I do find it difficult at times to understand the ratio between the items that are stacked. Personally, when I view them, I have a hard time because of the items that are on the second level. So the dark purple in this example, it's hard to know, like, is that category growing or shrinking by a certain amount? You can sort of feel for it, but I understand your feedback there. Any other observations? Anything missing in this visualization?
Information on Asian American voting habits prior to 1992.
Absolutely, yep. So that is one big thing right here. You can see from 1980 to before 1992, there's no Asian demographic represented in this data. And so in some cases, you may not always have all the data you need, right? And that's actually real life. Very, very rarely do you actually have perfectly clean data or everything you wish you had or need. And so often, and we don't know that here. So maybe when you think about visualizing something, if you don't quite have all the information, that's where adding footnotes and other information can help people understand, like, was that intentionally left out because it wasn't available or so forth. Great. Well, let's jump to one last visualization here. This one is a ratio of women's to men's median earnings in selected occupations for full-time workers for a 2-year period, 2007 to 2009. And so what this is showing you is thinking about think about a woman's income in a given profession divided by a male's income in that same profession over this time frame. And it's just selected professions. So from left to right, each of these bars are different professions, but they're sorted in a way to show you the lowest to highest ratio. So to sort of read this in layman's terms, the one on the rightmost side, the one that's showing pay equality, if you will, in this category, whereas on the left-hand side, there's much lower ratio of women's income is lower than a men's income in that same category. And the middle one that's red, again, red and blue not being great for colorblind, but the middle one that is red, median earnings ratio, that's showing you all professions, including those not necessarily depicted on the sides, to kind of give you a benchmark to compare against for these professions. Anything you see here is that you'd like to point out? Oh, of course, yes. So at the very bottom, if it's hard to see, on the left hand, from left to right, we have farmers and ranchers, physicians and surgeons, accountants and auditors. Again, the median in the middle, which is the general average of all industries. Then registered nurses, computer programmers, and personal care and service workers on the right-hand side.
This doesn't appear to be official census data. Is it a survey? How big is this data?
Yeah, so this is census data, but I think our folks from the census soon will explain there's like a variety of types of surveys that the Census Bureau holds. I think we often think of like the big Census 2020, but this is a smaller, like on a different cycle survey.
I've got to make a lot of assumptions here, like the one on the furthest right, like, okay, so you can't be better than that, so that's got to be an edge, but it would be nice to know what the edges are, and if we're looking at 1, 2, 3 on the edges or not, like it just could be clearer. It's super clear that you can't get more than 1, but it's not super clear that you can get more than 0.54. So, yes, yeah, we could, yeah.
Well, yes,
so
absolutely. It is
yeah, so right. So
no,
it's just like the edges are like, okay, is this the max?
Yes, that's a fair.
Max and min are top.
That's a totally natural observation. If you think about how this has been illustrated, the top of this y-axis, it tops out at 1.1. And so as a viewer, you might sort of inherently, I think we ground ourselves when you see a ratio of 1. It sounds sort of like a max. But this implies pay equality. It could definitely be higher than 1 in a profession, and that would imply women are earning more than men in that profession.
Right.
So even sort of the scaling that you put in a visual can sort of bias or lead your readers, if you will, for better or worse. Yeah.
When you think about the story behind it, I know when I first looked at it, I thought, oh, the one all the way on the right, there's the equality there. That's good. But then you think, wait, why is that? Maybe they're all underpaid and they're all getting minimum wage. I mean, both genders.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, as I said, like a lot of visuals often lead you to that next question. So like, why is this, or what is this not including? And that's a totally fair point. Could this have equality, but as a whole, not being paid fairly? Absolutely fair. One other thing I just offered to venture to share here is if you look on the left-hand side, we have physicians and surgeons, which is sort of a healthcare industry. And on the right-hand side, closer to equality, we have registered nurses. And so it's interesting to see 2 subcategories that are both within healthcare, but have sort of divergence around the pay equality. So something interesting there. Other things to think about is there's, again, a limited subset of professions that are depicted. So we maybe want to understand why the author chose these ones if there's something interesting about them in particular, or if this was a part of some other purpose. So again, thinking about, as we talked about a couple observations, what's that next question? Can we talk about whether it's pay fairness for all genders, and can we understand more like the scaling that we choose in the visual? Well, these are just 3 quick examples of census data and visualizing them, but we're going to actually kind of pivot into more, we heard a question earlier, like what census data is this? That's a great segue to understand more about what census data is and what we'll be looking further into analyzing that census data this evening. So I'd like to just welcome and turn it over to Noelle, who will go into the census information.
Hello, everyone. All right. Now, just to start, who is familiar with the U.S. Census? Okay, pretty good. I'd like to see that. Okay, let's see how far we're going to go. Okay, sorry, I need to go back. All right, and let's say the U.S. and actually, sorry, a little nervous. Okay, the U.S. Census, actually, for those who don't know, it's a nationwide count of everyone in the U.S., our whole population. This is actually mandated in the Constitution since 1790. And since then, we've actually, well, this 2020 census is coming up. Can anyone guess how many censuses we've had since 1790? Real quick. 24. We've had 24 censuses so far. And actually, the data that's used actually for the census determines a lot. I didn't know this until I started working here. It actually determines how many seats that we have in the House of Representatives. It actually determines funding as well. And the data actually is used to like determine like where businesses were actually placed, where communities can just enhance their all-around beautiness of their community. This 2020 census is actually going to be April 1st, 2020. You're going to receive an invitation in the mail come March. And like I said, the deadline is April 1st. We'd like for you to fill out your census. There's 10 questions in that census. Usually, I believe it's like age, sex, how many people live in your house if they're not living with you, your gender, what else was there?
Homeowner or renter?
Yeah, homeowner or renter, things like that. The question of being a citizen is not on the census. So please be aware of that. Please pass that on. That was actually is made final like earlier in the year. So it's not on the census. So, but it's 10 questions that represents 10 years, and it makes an impact for additional 10 years. So you want to make sure that you're into filling out your census and tell your families. Now, how many people in here are familiar with Medicare? Section 8, Head Start programs. Those actually are the programs that Section 8 actually helps fund. It actually helps fund like our roads, our fire department, our police department. It actually, with researchers and businesses, it lets businesses know, hey, there's a lot of people in this. Well, as you fill out the census, the government will say, hey, there's a whole big population of these people in this area. We need more schools here. We need more stores here. And that actually goes into, Rome and the census tract that, later on I'm going to be told to you. But it's very important. And this is like $675 billion of funding that's going to each, divided through all the states in the US. And it's roughly about, don't quote me on this, it's about 2,500 like per person.
Per year.
Yeah, per year. I mean, it's not much, but collectively that makes a big difference. And considering that Washington State is high in like our wages, our minimum wage is really high. Look at all the buildings, downtown. We have so much money engrossed in Washington State. There's no need that there was no way that we should actually have the one person represent us in the House of Representatives in 2010. Most states got 2 and 3. We only got 1. And like I said, considering how rich Washington is, we need more representation to handle our state's money. And we all know about the viaduct. I'm sure funding from that went into there. And when you're actually filling out your census, I found out, as I'm working for the census, my tax money, that actually gets, I don't really know where my tax money really goes. Most people really don't. But considering that I work for the census, I know that some of that money is going to the federal funds that's going to fund for the census. So at least if I fill out my census card, I know a little bit of that money is going to go to my community. And so it's really important that you fill this out. Please do not be scared. We've actually had a couple of, I guess 2010 in our census, we found out that there were like a low count population, which was the African American community. Children under 5. For some reason, parents don't think they need to count their children. And that's so that's been something as well. And also adults 65 and older. I'm not too sure why we always think maybe because, they like to go out and travel. They don't check the mail. They're having fun, enjoying retirement. And also the immigration population. I'm sure there's some sensitivity there as well. But, like you take this class and like I'm telling you, the census actually, it's nothing political. It's nothing but data. This is a count of the population of people in the U.S. But your personal information does not go to like the president. He might know how many people's in Washington State. That's it. Things like that. He doesn't know any final details. And your information is actually kept private. I actually had to swear an oath, a lifetime oath of if I divulge any of your information, I can get fined $250,000 and be placed in jail for 5 years. I do not want that to happen. And the information that the government does have, that information actually is kept safe for 70 years. So they assume that you'll be either passed on or just too old, I guess. So your information is kept private. So, please feel free to fill out your census when it comes. This year we're introducing 3 ways to fill out your census. Usually it was always by mail, by phone, and this year is online. You can bring out your smartphones, iPads, anything. Just make sure you fill out your census. And also, if you don't fill out your census, you're going to get a couple of reminders, and 3 reminders actually. And if you don't, you actually have somebody knocking on your door. So please fill out your census.
Thank you, Noel.
Oh, sorry, questions?
So when will all the data be available, and then when will some of these things like the House of Representatives, when will that be recalibrated? Is that 2021 or 2022?
Yeah, we know when they get the information in the December 31st, that's when it's presented to the government, and then they'll start making their decisions. I don't know what the time frame is for when they make the decisions for legislation. I just know they need all the information by then, by the 31st of December.
That's our general deadline.
I'm sorry?
December 31st is our general
Deadline, yes.
We usually finish early, deliver that result to the House.
Yes.
But is that when it'll be searchable by anyone?
No. The information that you provide this year for the 2020 census will not be shown until 70 years from now.
Oh, no, I mean.
From the,
yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, that's public.
Yeah, it won't be released to public, it's just all government.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, so please fill out your census. And I also want to say, it also goes for Pell Grants, because I was so happy that they've helped me pay for college.
All right. Thank you. Just a side note, we pay very well to have people help us out as a numerator and as recruiting assistant. More information can be found over there at that table. I have a recruiting assistant, Christian, helping us out today.
It was a great segue into a government position.
Exactly. We pay $23 per hour for census taker.
And it doesn't interrupt any government subsidies or anything that you have going on as well. It's a temporary job, so it does not affect your benefits.
Alrighty, sorry, no problem. So now we're finally getting to the juicy census data. Again, my name is CU Lu. I am a CU as in see you around. Just make my name more memorable. So since January 2019, I have worked for the U.S. Census Bureau as a partnership specialist. And today I'm going to cover some terms that will help you better understand census data on Rome. So first, slide. Yes, let's dive into census tracts first. So census tract is a man-made concept. It was created by the United States Census Bureau. It's roughly a neighborhood. It is not bounded with city limits. It's not bounded with city limits. And you cannot find it on Google's map. It has a very unique 3-part format, which is census tract reference number, county, and state. Say if I have to talk to my boss in Los Angeles, we have a regional office there, about one particular very specific census tract, I have to tell him or her in this particular format. Otherwise, she can find many, many different tracts with the same reference number. And in this imaginary man-made neighborhood, at maximum 8,000 people live in that tract. And tract reference number will change depending on the population growth and decrease. But most of the years, they remain the same. Next concept is zip code. Again, this is a man-made concept established by the United States Postal Services. It is not bounded with city limits. A good example I can give to you is I live in Shoreline. My zip code is 98133. My local post office, Beater Lake Post Office, serves Shoreline as well as North Seattle. So if I do not specify Shoreline, Washington 98133, my mail could be delivered to somewhere in Seattle. You can find your zip code just by looking on Google Map. Big difference between census tract and zip code. You cannot find census tract on Google's map, but you can find that on Roam, which is a data tool from US Census Bureau. Last but not least, city limits and neighborhoods. This is very straightforward. It's definitely connected with geographic boundaries, and this is determined by the territorial law. So far, so good. All right, let's dive into the next slide. So earlier someone asked, oh, is that like American Community Survey? So we are doing the census, the big survey, which happens every 10 years. We count everyone who lives in the United States. It happens in 2010. We're having it again, 2020. Census Day is April 1st. In between 2010 and 2020, Census Bureau still collect data. We have a lot of economic data, economic surveys sent out to taxpayers, a lot of business owners. Before coming to census, I worked as an accountant, bookkeeper. And I do tax preparation for business owners. So I remember almost every year some business owner will bring census economic survey form, because that thing looks like a letter come from IRS. It does ask you about your taxable income. It does ask you about your business size and your property tax. It can be very detailed. But thinking about that kind of survey is more detailed, and the participant number will be much smaller. And where various survey is conducted on a rolling basis. A great example is American Community Fact Survey. Next. Once in a while, since the Census Bureau also publishes census data sets. Usually these data are broken into counties, and people can use this information for industrial trend and pattern by industry. And next. And the previous slide, you mean surveys? So those surveys are our programs, our actual programs. They're ongoing, keep rolling every year.
Whereas the data set is a snapshot.
It's a snapshot every 3 years, every 2 years. It's more like, yeah, it's published and it's all free to the public's view. And last is census data tools. We collect a lot of data. If nobody's using them, nobody's want to look at them, that's only half of our work. We really want to make the maximum out of what we offer. So Roam today, we're going to cover today, is just one of the popular census data tools. We also have other data tools that help people, especially business owners, to find out local economy activities, poverty rate. Yeah. So far, so good. Okay. And we're gradually diving into Roam. How do we do that? Okay, so on your laptop, on your computer, we are going to open up a link. census.gov/Roam. Rome. R as in red, O as in organic, A as in apple, M as in mommy. Yeah. Response outreach area mapper. Rome. Are we on the same page? All right. If you find this page, I want you to scroll down a little bit. Rome application. Interact with the live application below. Open it in a separate window. Rome is a very powerful visual aid that actually trying to display multiple sources of our data. So it's always the best to click it, to open it up in a new separate window, which could take a while to load. But once you have it, it's gonna look like this. Yeah, so Rome is, oh gosh, it's still loading. Okay, so Rome is trying to visualize multiple sources of data and integrate with our with map. So it's trying to match what is the data, how much this, where it comes from, geographic location. Some of our, yes, let's go back to this. Oops. Oh, great. It's a little bit different from PowerPoint. So everyone, we're on the same page. It's still loading?
No. Yeah.
Still loading? Yeah. Cover that. All right. So, yeah. Sure. So I'll have this screen so far. Okay, we're all good? All right, so I'm just going to click OK. Get rid of that. And on your left side, this upper side, the bar, let's search by address. Select that. Drop down. Search by address. And just type pretty much any address. Your home address, school address. I will just do, yeah, right. Oh. Which address do you want to do? Oh. I'm just entering a downtown address, and it will directly take me here. Search results. And I can zoom in, zoom out.
This is like 2 blocks from the library. So this is the information for right around here.
And I do want you to click a little icon on your right-hand side, the corner, legend. Tells you what color represents what group. So far, so good. Yeah. So if we zoom in, zoom out, we see our whole area are in different colors. According to the color key, the darker the color is, we have higher low response score. It's loading. Oh, right. So, so census tract. It's right here. I'm just going to highlight it. when you're describing census tract, you always say the reference number plus county and your state. That's a good example. And low response score, 3.58, actually it's a percentage. This means among 100 people living in that tract, about 38, 36, 35 people are not going to respond to census questionnaire. They will either be followed up with, by our census employee, ask them to fill out, or they will never just respond. They will not be counted for 2020 census. And this data was based on our census study and historical data trend from 2000 to 2010 census result. So far, so good. And this window this bar can be scrolled down. So ACS, self-response rate. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to inquire about the low response score.
Okay.
So it's a little confusing to me. So it's this is the like no response.
Yeah.
Percentage.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I put that label.
Yeah, because it's low. If you have a low response score, that means a lot of people in your tract will not respond. Yeah, it's the opposite. Yeah, if you have a very low response score, that's good. That means most people will respond to census.
One trivia question with this, because I was playing with it before.
Sure.
So if you can see the darker shaded, like the dark blue is the lower response scores relative to others. Can anyone guess why like the area we picked has a pretty low relative response score? Yes. So this is University District over there, and so students tend not to respond to the census.
And also, we kind of found out that when the students get their cards, they're actually supposed to get their cards at school. And so when their parents will get their cards too, but sometimes their parents will fill out the cards for them at home. But we prefer for the students to fill the cards out for where they're going to school, because the students use the resources and roads and libraries and everything in that state. So we want the funding to go to that state. FYI.
Yes. Yes. No, so just, oh, where'd they go? Huh. Okay. I collect something.
Computer age.
Okay, actually this is a great moment for a trivia question. Can anyone tell me the median age of University District tracts? Wild guess.
What was that again?
Median age among University District tracts.
30.
Any guesses?
30.
30 something? A lot of students. I'm trying to trick you. Median age, 64. A lot of professors? Actually, it's 55. So you do have a lot of faculties, a lot of homeowners. Even though students come and go, a lot of them live in dorms. They don't fill out the census form or missed it. Yeah. Yep, that's University District, and this is
Are tracks constant?
tracks. Good question. Yes and no, depends on where people are. So tracks are, again, man-made concepts Census Bureau created to better analyze population. So back in 2010, say we have one tract, 5,000 people live there. And now we're in 2020, and according to a 2015 community survey, oh gosh, additional 5,000 people moved to there. So likely that tract will be divided into two. Each tract will have a new reference number. Say original tract number is 350 King County, Washington. Maybe now it's 350.1 King County, Washington. The other tract becomes 350.2 King County, Washington. So yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, just feel free to play with Rome, not just where you live, where you work, and even another place you grew up, or your family members temporarily live there or work there. You can make a good comparison, see the low response score, and I always found it's fun to see the median income. In the form. Yeah, we have a very nice chart.
I was just going to share a quick, I don't know if it's exactly a tip, but when I was playing with Rome myself in my office, sorry. Oh, sorry, yeah. One quick tip potentially when I was playing with Rome in my office was if you open a new tab with it, instead of searching for things in the search bar, if you just sort of like zoom in on the map and click in tracks, it seemed to load much faster for me at least than searching like a very specific piece of information. So it does that initial load of the map, and I think it's pulling all the that's why when it first loads, it has all the beautiful visual of the whole US, because I think it's loading every tract together in the map, and that's why I just test it out and see if it's faster for you that way, since you know where to zoom in on the map if you live somewhere or work somewhere. Give that a shot, but obviously the search bar is really powerful for searching a variety of other things like a specific tract. So
yeah, like Jay mentioned, you can search by different categories, by address, by state, by county, by census tract, by RCC. RCC stands for Regional Census Center. We're in Los Angeles region.
Yeah, this particular track.
Another way to better look at things is to go through layer list. Just a little icon on your right-hand side, very top, 3 layers. We can just say we only select low response score by 2017 census tract. And there's a ... click that, transparency. We can make it darker, we can make it, you can see the color is changing. It's easier to see geographic boundaries and street address. That's one way to play this Rome visual. Other way to make it more visually friendly is to go to base map gallery on your left-hand side. Usually on my own computer, I prefer streets. Just give you different map. Still, it's the same region. I found between 40% to 50% transparent level is pretty visually appealing. Transparency, your right-hand corner, 3 layers, you call layer list. That little icon, you clicked it. Then you deselect additional layer and deselect 2020 audience segmentation. Just select low response score by 2017 census tract, ... You select that, transparency. Gives you an option. You can set up your range.
So the additional layers, can they like color the map and with
Yeah.
other attributes, maybe share something like that?
If I really want to go light, I can go all the way to 100. I really want to go dark, I can do, say, 30%.
With the additional layers, can they like show other attributes on the map?
Yeah, so earlier I was asked to do like a school district layer or zip code layer. Of course, you can play with it. Biggest concern is Rome is a national data tool, so sometimes we don't have the data just for our region. So it's trying to accommodating everything everywhere, but still, they're still building it. Yeah.
Is there somewhere that sort of explains what all these different columns are?
Sure. So one thing we can do, so let's clear that. But this is my screen. Here's a little icon, open attribute table. You all see it? Click that. Boom. You get additional data. Has everyone get a chance to search your current residence, place of work, and another place they have lived? Collecting these data on your worksheet? Yeah? Sure. Let's break into groups with your worksheet and share with your peers and see what you found interesting. Something you did not know, or something you just learned today, or nothing is really unpredictable or anything. Yeah. Just talk to her. All right. So let's go over these exercises. These questions, we ask these questions and hope you to use Rome data to support your claim. And first question is, if you are a private developer, where would you like to build a high-end shopping mall, like University Village? And another, usually another thing I always look into is, what kind of people actually go to the mall? Young people. Next question, if you are early learning education nonprofit organization, where would you like to build a preschool? Next, if you are the state government, where would you put a free health clinic? I talked to that group. Where would you like to put a free or low-cost health clinic? Okay, next, if you're a Comcast or CenturyLink, where would you like to advertise your discounted internet service? All right, so if you're a census, where would you focus your census outreach efforts? So when we're looking at Rome, you see the low response score, that's, yeah. How do we know? That's based on past census results, the pattern, and also various, say, American Community Survey, do they really respond to us? And we always do test runs. So in 2018, 2017, we tried a small batch of the census study, sending out the form and expecting people to respond as a very small batch. Based on that, we are able to draw some conclusion. Low response score is just a approximate reference. We will not know the actual low response score, or how many people, the percentage of people don't respond until we finish the census operation. So yeah, so Rome is for public, is for Census Bureau to do our best estimates based on past pattern and studies. You don't have to add up to 100. Yes. Rome is a great visual tool, but it's not really a good like a tracking tool or like data tracking tool. Usually what I do is just jot down the census tracts reference number and county. And you can always use the feature called PIN. You can just save it if you keep using one computer. Rome is a national tool. So they might have get updated in New York region. It has no impact on us, but somehow it will impact us in terms of loading time. Yeah. But we're constantly updating it, especially between now and April 1st. We're trying to provide better picture in terms of low response tracks so we can better focus, we can get people counted. Couple ways to support census. 1, respond to your questionnaire. 2, talk to people about census. 3, work for us. We pay very well. And we have swags. Ari is right there, Christian. Yeah. Thank you for your time. It really is a pleasure to really be here.
All right, so I'm gonna be really quick, but I just wanted to talk about a couple of library resources. This is sort of like, if you like this, you might like. So the library subscribes to some data tools that you can use. So we buy them on your behalf. These are premium, tools that you don't have to pay for because you can get to them for free with your library card. And so 3 of them that I just want to mention here is Demographics Now. There's census data in Demographics Now, but then there's also other kinds of data. So it's pulling from things like the Bureau of Labor Statistics that has consumer expenditure data. So you can find out how much money do people spend on apparel in the university district, those kind of questions. And it also has lifestyle details that come from Experian, the credit monitoring company. So they've got like all these like what they call psychographic reports, which are basically kind of like lifestyle personas that you can start to understand, more and more data about who lives in a community. So that one's really cool. I use this one every day in my work, and there's a lot of stuff that comes. Like if you drill down into the base layer, a lot of it comes from the census. So it's super important that census data. This one, really kind of cryptic name. It's actually kind of cryptic as well. But what these do, these RMA e-statement studies, these are industry norms. So you can start to understand, how industries operate. And so this can answer questions like, how much inventory turns over in an apparel store, these kind of things, and like how much money do people spend, or do restaurants spend on average in advertising, that kind of stuff. And then finally, the last one I want to share is reference to a say, which is a directory of companies. This has 57 million companies in it. And so you can query that by location. And so this is where you can make lists of various companies. So like, I want to know pet stores in West Seattle. Maybe you want to go frequent those pet stores, or maybe you're thinking about starting a pet store and you want to know like who's my competition in this area, all that kind of stuff. So that's just a couple of the sort of like data tools that the library buys. If that's interesting to you, there's a handout with more as back. It looks like this one. But even better than that, take one of these little half sheets here, which have our business information appointments in it. You don't have to be you don't actually have to be a business to go to these. But if you're interested in learning more about these, how they work, this is an hour of time that you can spend with a librarian trained in business research, and we'll like walk through. We'll listen. First of all, we listen to what you're doing, and then we will help you figure out which of these tools might be useful for you. So Microsoft Office. People might not know that we offer we offer free access to the proctoring of the exams of the Microsoft Office Specialist and the Microsoft, so the MOS and FTA exams. Those will put you back a couple $100 if you would just go out and do them. So come to the library, you can do that for free. And we also have lots of like in-person and online classes that also can prepare you for those exams as well. And oh, the other one, Statistical Abstract of the United States. So lots and lots of other data sources that come through that tool, and that's another premium tool that we subscribe to.